The unexpected summons. Captain Ryan Colt stood in the middle of a vast alien battlefield, the remnants of war scattered as far as the eye could see. The sky above was a swirl of dark clouds, the air heavy with silence. He had been sent to this desolate planet to investigate strange energy readings, but what he found was beyond anything he expected. A faint hum broke the stillness. Ryan's eyes locked onto a small alien beacon embedded in the ground, its soft blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. He crouched, brushing off layers of dust and debris. As his fingers grazed the device, it activated, projecting a hologram into the air. The image of a towering alien king appeared, his features stern and commanding. His deep, resonant voice echoed across the battlefield. "Human hero Ryan Colt," the king began, his eyes piercing through the projection. "Your reputation precedes you. I, King Varix of the Ulari Dominion, summon you to my court. Come alone. Bring no weapons. The fate of my people, and perhaps yours, depends on it." Before Ryan could respond, the hologram flickered out, leaving him in stunned silence. The beacon dimmed and fell lifeless once more. Hours later, Ryan's ship pierced through the atmosphere of a hidden Ulari stronghold. The coordinates provided by the beacon led him to an isolated moon, its surface veiled in perpetual darkness. A group of alien guards waited as he landed, their faces unreadable beneath their helmets. "Captain Colt," one of them said, his voice metallic through the translator device. "Follow us." Ryan's every instinct screamed at him to be cautious. He had faced countless threats in his military career: pirates, hostile aliens, even rogue AI. But this felt different. There was an air of mystery and urgency he couldn't shake. The guards escorted him into a massive chamber carved out of black stone. Glowing crystals lined the walls, casting eerie light across the room. At the far end, on a throne of obsidian, sat King Varix. His presence was as imposing as the hologram, but now Ryan could see the weariness in his eyes. "You're braver than I expected," the king said, rising to his feet. "Most would ignore such a summons, but you came." "Let's just say I don't like mysteries," Ryan replied, his tone steady but cautious. "What's this about?" The king gestured to a shimmering display beside his throne. It showed the image of a young Ulari woman with sharp features and radiant blue eyes. Her expression was one of defiance, but there was also a trace of fear. "This is my daughter, Princess Elira," King Varix said. "She has gone missing." Ryan crossed his arms. "You're the ruler of a powerful empire. Surely you have an army of soldiers who can find her." The king's gaze darkened. "This is no ordinary disappearance. Elira fled after an attempt on her life, by someone within my court. She believes she cannot trust anyone, but she will trust you." Ryan frowned. "Why me? I don't even know her." "You don't need to," the king replied. "Elira has studied your kind. She admires humanity's resilience, your willingness to defy the odds. She once said that if anyone could protect her, it would be a human. And you, Captain Colt, are the best among them." Ryan felt the weight of the king's words. He had been a soldier for years, celebrated for his victories, but this was a different kind of mission. A rescue, not a battle. "What makes you think she'll listen to me?" Ryan asked. The king stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because she has no choice. The galaxy is filled with those who wish to use her, to manipulate her for their own gain. She carries a secret, a power that could alter the balance of the galaxy. If it falls into the wrong hands, countless lives will be lost." The room fell silent. Ryan's mind raced with questions, but one stood out. "What kind of power are we talking about?" The king's expression grew grim. "That is something even I do not fully understand, but it is enough to make her the most hunted being in the galaxy." Ryan exhaled slowly. "So you want me to find her, convince her to come back, and protect her from everyone?" "Precisely," the king said. "But understand this. If you fail, it will not just be my daughter's life at stake. It will be the future of both our species, As Ryan left the chamber, his thoughts churned. The stakes were higher than he had ever faced. A missing princess, a hidden power, and enemies lurking in every shadow. It was a mission unlike any other, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Back aboard his ship, Ryan studied the star map provided by the king. It pointed to a region of space known as the Forbidden Zone, a place no sane person would dare to venture. "Guess I'm not that sane," he muttered, setting the coordinates. As the ship roared to life, Ryan tightened his grip on the controls. Whatever awaited him in the Forbidden Zone, he knew one thing for sure. This was going to be one hell of a ride. Into the Forbidden Zone. The Forbidden Zone was more than a name. It was a warning. Even the bravest spacefarers spoke of it with hushed voices, recounting tales of ghost ships, collapsing stars, and whispers that seemed to claw at the mind. For Captain Ryan Colt, it was just another challenge. Or so he told himself. As Ryan's ship, the Stellar Vanguard, approached the edge of the zone, the stars themselves seemed to thin out, swallowed by an impenetrable darkness. His navigation system flickered erratically, the glowing lines of the star map twisting into meaningless loops. A robotic voice crackled to life. "Warning. Entering uncharted space. Proceed at your own risk." Ryan smirked and muttered, "Thanks for the pep talk." The ship's scanners beeped weakly, barely functioning. Ryan leaned forward in his seat, staring at the void ahead. The Forbidden Zone wasn't empty. Faint flashes of light flickered in the distance, like silent explosions or dying stars. He adjusted the ship's course manually, his fingers steady despite the creeping unease in his chest. The first anomaly struck without warning. A ripple of energy shot through space, slamming into the Stellar Vanguard like a tidal wave. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as Ryan fought to regain control. Panels sparked, and the artificial gravity fluctuated, leaving him momentarily weightless before slamming him back into his seat. "Great," he grunted, silencing the alarms with a frustrated jab. "This place really knows how to roll out the welcome mat." As the turbulence subsided, Ryan noticed something strange on the scanner. A faint signal, pulsing at irregular intervals. It was weak, almost drowned out by the interference, but it was there. A signal meant someone, or something, was out there. Guided by the faint beacon, Ryan pushed deeper into the Forbidden Zone. The surrounding space seemed to warp and twist, as if reality itself was unraveling. Shadows danced across his cockpit, though there was no light source to cast them. Finally, the signal grew stronger, leading him to a derelict alien vessel drifting in the void. Its hull was jagged and scorched, as though it had survived a battle. The ship's design was unfamiliar, its surface etched with glowing symbols that pulsed faintly. Ryan docked the Stellar Vanguard and suited up, his nerves tingling with anticipation. The airlock hissed as it connected to the alien ship. He stepped inside, flashlight cutting through the eerie darkness. The interior of the ship was a maze of twisted metal and shattered corridors. Ryan's boots echoed hollowly as he moved cautiously, his flashlight illuminating fragments of alien technology and discarded weapons. The atmosphere felt oppressive, as though the ship itself resented his presence. Then he heard it, a faint, rhythmic tapping. It wasn't mechanical. It was deliberate. Ryan froze, heart pounding. He followed the sound, his flashlight sweeping across the walls. The tapping grew louder, leading him to a sealed chamber at the heart of the vessel. The door's control panel was scorched, but Ryan managed to bypass it with a makeshift tool from his belt. The door slid open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. In the center was a pedestal, and on it lay a royal insignia, the same one worn by Princess Elira in the hologram. The insignia was tattered and stained, but it pulsed faintly with energy. Ryan reached out cautiously, but before his fingers touched it, a voice boomed from the shadows. "Step away, human." He spun around, his flashlight landing on a towering figure, cloaked in dark armor. The figure's face was obscured by a helmet, but the glowing eyes beneath it radiated hostility. "Who are you?" Ryan demanded, his hand hovering near his sidearm instinctively, though he carried no weapon as per the king's orders. The figure stepped closer, its presence suffocating. "I am Derek, protector of the royal line. You have no place here." Ryan straightened, refusing to show fear. "I was sent by King Varix to find his daughter. If you're protecting her, then we're on the same side." Derek's silence was deafening. Finally, he spoke, his voice dripping with suspicion. "Elira is no longer here. She fled before I could stop her. The beacon you followed was a trap meant for her enemies." Ryan frowned. "Then why are you still here?" "To deal with fools like you who think they can solve what they don't understand," Derek snapped. "You want to find Elira. Then you need to survive this place first." Before Ryan could reply, the ship groaned loudly, its structure trembling. A sickly green light seeped through the walls, and Derek's posture stiffened. "They found us," he said darkly. "The hunters. If you want to live, follow me." Ryan didn't have time to argue. Derek charged down the corridor, and Ryan followed, the green light spreading like wildfire. Shadows stretched unnaturally, taking on monstrous shapes that snarled and clawed at the walls. The two reached an escape pod, and Derek shoved Ryan inside. "Take this," he said, handing Ryan a small encrypted device. "It will lead you to Elira. Don't lose it." "What about you?" Ryan shouted as the pod's hatch closed. "I'll hold them off. Now go." The pod launched, sending Ryan hurtling back into space. As he watched the alien vessel disappear into the abyss, he couldn't shake the feeling that things were only going to get worse. He looked at the encrypted device in his hand. It pulsed faintly, a new beacon lighting the way. "Elira," he muttered to himself, gripping the controls. "You better be worth all this trouble." The first clue. Ryan Colt stared at the encrypted device in his hand. Its dim, rhythmic pulse, the only sign of life aboard his small ship. He'd escaped the horrors of the Forbidden Zone, but now his mission felt more uncertain than ever. The device Derek had given him was an enigma, its alien design resisting all attempts to decode it. "Come on, give me something," Ryan muttered, tapping the console as the ship's AI tried its best to decipher the technology. After hours of frustration, the device finally flickered to life. A distorted voice echoed through the cabin, speaking in an alien language Ryan couldn't understand. Alongside it, a map projected into the air, showing a system of stars he barely recognized. But one thing stood out, a blinking marker on an uncharted planet at the edge of the galaxy. "That's where you went," Ryan whispered to himself. "Let's hope you're still there." The journey to the planet was tense. As Ryan approached, he realized the planet wasn't on any official star charts for a reason. Its surface was veiled by a swirling atmosphere of crimson and gold, and his scanners detected intense magnetic storms that would make landing treacherous. Of course, it couldn't just be easy, he grumbled, gripping the controls tightly. The stellar vanguard rattled violently as it pierced the stormy atmosphere. Ryan's teeth clenched as the turbulence threatened to rip his ship apart. But his years of experience paid off. With a final jolt, the ship broke through the clouds, revealing a barren landscape below. The surface was an endless expanse of jagged rock and glowing fissures, as if the planet's core was barely contained beneath its crust. But amidst the chaos, Ryan's scanner picked up something unusual, a faint energy signature originating from a lone structure in the distance. The structure was a crumbling alien outpost, its spires twisted and corroded by time. Ryan approached cautiously, his footsteps echoing against the metallic ground. The air was thick with the scent of sulfur, and the faint hum of machinery could be heard beneath the howling wind. Inside, the outpost was in ruins. Broken consoles and shattered displays littered the floor, but one terminal still flickered weakly. Ryan approached it, wiping off layers of dust and debris. The moment his fingers touched the screen, a surge of energy coursed through the room. The terminal came to life, projecting a hologram of Princess Aelira. Her image was grainy and distorted, but her voice was clear and filled with urgency. "If you're seeing this, then you followed my trail," she began. "I don't know who you are, but if you're here to help, know this: I am running from more than my father's enemies. There is a force hunting me that even he does not understand." Ryan's pulse quickened as the hologram continued. "I've left behind my personal diary, encrypted to ensure it remains safe. Inside it, you'll find the truth about why I fled and the danger I pose. But beware. If you found me, so have they." The message ended abruptly, leaving Ryan standing in the eerie silence of the outpost. He searched the room until he found it, a sleek, cylindrical device hidden beneath a pile of debris. The diary's surface shimmered faintly, its alien runes pulsating in a rhythmic pattern. Ryan examined it closely, but before he could figure out how to open it, the outpost's lights flickered. A low growl echoed through the halls. Ryan froze, his instincts flaring. He wasn't alone. Reaching for his flashlight, he swept the beam across the room. Shadows danced wildly against the walls, and the growling grew louder. It was guttural, alien, and far too close for comfort. He backed toward the entrance, clutching the diary tightly. The sound of claws scraping against metal sent a chill down his spine. Then, from the darkness, it emerged, a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen. Its body was sleek and angular, its skin glistening like black glass. Its eyes burned with an unnatural green light, and its movements were unnervingly precise, as though it were studying him. Ryan didn't wait for it to attack. He bolted toward the exit, weaving through the crumbling hallways as the creature gave chase. Its speed was terrifying, its claws tearing through walls like paper. As he reached the open air, Ryan sprinted toward his ship, the diary tucked under his arm. The creature burst out of the outpost behind him, letting out a deafening roar that echoed across the barren landscape. Ryan dove into the stellar vanguard and slammed the hatch shut. The creature hurled itself at the ship, its claws screeching against the hull. Ryan fired up the engines, the ship lurching off the ground just as the creature leaped for him again. It missed by inches, crashing into the rocky ground as the vanguard shot into the sky. Safe for now, Ryan slumped into his seat, catching his breath. He stared at the encrypted diary in his hands, the weight of Aelira's words sinking in. "What kind of danger are you running from?" he muttered, setting the diary on the console. The ship's AI chimed in. "Would you like me to begin decrypting the device?" Ryan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah. Let's see what she's hiding." As the AI began its work, Ryan gazed out at the stormy planet shrinking in the distance. He knew one thing for certain. Whatever Aelira was running from, it wasn't just her enemies. It was something much, much worse. The chase intensifies. Ryan Colt had barely begun decrypting Aelira's encrypted diary when the stellar vanguard's proximity alarms erupted in a cacophony of shrill beats. He bolted upright, his gaze snapping to the scanner. 3 ships had appeared on the radar, closing in fast. Their sleek, angular designs screamed one thing: bounty hunters. Of course, Ryan muttered, powering up the engines. Why wouldn't they show up now? The encrypted diary still hummed faintly on the console, a silent reminder of the secrets he'd yet to uncover. But Ryan had no time to think about that. He slammed the controls forward, propelling the stellar vanguard into a sharp ascent as the bounty hunters opened fire. The first barrage of plasma bolts streaked past the ship, narrowly missing its hull. Ryan's hands moved instinctively, guiding the vanguard into a series of tight evasive maneuvers. The ship groaned under the strain, but it held together. For now. "These guys don't mess around," Ryan muttered. He activated the ship's countermeasures, deploying a field of electromagnetic flares to confuse the pursuing vessels. 2 of the ships veered off course momentarily, but the third remained locked onto him. The cockpit shook violently as a plasma bolt grazed the Vanguard's left engine. Warning lights flashed across the console, and the ship's AI chimed in with its usual monotone calm. Damage detected. Propulsion system operating at 74% efficiency. Yeah, thanks for the update, Ryan snapped, wrestling with the controls. As the chase continued, Ryan's scanners picked up a potential escape route. A dense asteroid field just a few clicks away. It was a gamble. Flying through the field at high speed could tear the Vanguard apart. But staying in open space with bounty hunters on his tail wasn't much better. Ryan pushed the ship toward the asteroid field, the massive rocks looming larger with every passing second. Behind him, the bounty hunters hesitated, their ship slowing as they weighed the risk. Not so brave now, Ryan muttered, weaving the Vanguard through the tumbling debris. He dodged one asteroid after another, his reflexes sharp despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The bounty hunters weren't deterred for long. One of the ships plunged into the field after him, its plasma cannons firing sporadically. Ryan grimaced as a bolt clipped a nearby asteroid, sending shards of rock pelting against his hull. This was a terrible idea, he muttered, gripping the controls tighter. The Vanguard scanner suddenly picked up a faint signal, a beacon buried deep within the asteroid field. Ryan's heart raced as he recognized the pattern. It matched the encrypted diary's data. That's no coincidence, he said, steering the ship toward the source. The bounty hunter's ship was still on his tail, closing the gap with alarming speed. Ryan activated the Vanguard's rear thrusters, releasing a burst of energy that propelled his ship forward and sent debris hurtling toward his pursuer. The maneuver bought him just enough time to reach the signal. As he rounded a massive asteroid, a hidden docking station came into view. The structure was ancient, its exterior covered in alien carvings that glowed faintly. This has to be it, Ryan said, guiding the Vanguard into the station's docking bay. The ship's landing gear scraped against the uneven surface as it came to a halt. Ryan barely had time to catch his breath before the docking station's defense systems activated. Turrets emerged from the walls, swiveling toward the bounty hunter's ship as it entered the bay. A barrage of laser fire erupted, forcing the hunter to retreat. Ryan watched as the hostile ship disappeared into the asteroid field, its engines flaring in frustration. The station's turrets retracted, leaving the bay eerily silent. "Looks like I've got a guardian angel," Ryan muttered, stepping out of the Vanguard. The docking station's interior was just as ancient as its exterior. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, each one pulsating with a soft, rhythmic light. Ryan followed the glow deeper into the station, his footsteps echoing in the vast, empty halls. At the heart of the structure, he found a chamber that felt alive. The walls thrummed with energy, and in the center of the room was a pedestal holding a small crystalline sphere. It radiated the same energy as Elira's diary. Ryan reached out cautiously, his fingers brushing against the sphere. The moment he touched it, a projection filled the room. It was Elira, her expression weary but determined. "Whoever you are," she began, her voice resonating through the chamber, "you've proven yourself resourceful enough to make it this far. But if you truly wish to help me, you must act quickly. They are closing in." The projection shifted, showing coordinates to another planet, a lush world teeming with life. But there was something off about it, a faint distortion in the image that made Ryan's skin crawl. Elira's voice grew softer. "This is where I'll be. But beware, the ones hunting me are closer than you think. Trust no one." The projection faded, leaving Ryan alone in the dim chamber. He pocketed the sphere and made his way back to the Vanguard, his mind racing. The chase wasn't over. It was only beginning. With Elira's enemies closing in and her location finally revealed, Ryan knew the next step would be even more dangerous. As the Vanguard lifted off from the station, Ryan tightened his grip on the controls. "Hang on, Elira," he muttered under his breath. "I'm coming for you." Elira's secret. The jungle planet of Nerium V was a stark contrast to the barren landscapes Ryan Colt had traversed so far. Its vibrant canopy of emerald and gold stretched endlessly, the air buzzing with the sounds of alien wildlife. Yet beneath its beauty lay an unmistakable tension, as though the planet itself held its breath. Ryan had followed Illyra's trail to this world, guided by the coordinates from the crystalline sphere. But this time, there were no welcoming beacons or holographic messages, only silence and the faint energy signature his ship's scanners had picked up deep within the jungle. "Nothing like a walk through paradise," Ryan muttered, strapping on his gear. His ship, the Stellar Vanguard, was hidden in a natural cavern, its systems running on low power to avoid detection. The jungle was alive with movement. Creatures darted through the underbrush, their glowing eyes watching Ryan as he picked his way through the dense foliage. The air was thick with humidity, each step a battle against vines and roots that seemed intent on slowing him down. Hours passed before Ryan finally reached a clearing. At its center stood a small weathered temple, its stone surface covered in alien glyphs. The energy signature was strongest here, pulsing faintly from within. Ryan approached cautiously, his instincts screaming at him to stay alert. The temple's entrance yawned like a mouth, its shadows promising both answers and danger. Inside, the air was cool and damp, the faint hum of ancient machinery echoing through the corridors. Ryan followed the energy signature to a central chamber, where he found her. Illyra. She was seated on a raised platform, her back to him, her form illuminated by a shaft of golden light. Her long, silken hair cascaded down her shoulders, and her posture was tense, as though she had been waiting for this moment. "You found me," she said without turning. Her voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of exhaustion. Ryan took a cautious step forward. "You've made it pretty difficult. Your father sent me to bring you back." Illyra finally turned to face him. Her radiant blue eyes locked onto his, filled with a mixture of defiance and vulnerability. "I'm not going back," she said firmly. "Not yet." Ryan frowned. "Do you have any idea what's happening out there? The galaxy is tearing itself apart trying to find you." "And if they do?" Illyra challenged, standing up. "They won't care about me. They'll care about what I carry." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Ryan's brow furrowed. "What do you mean, what you carry?" Illyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped closer and placed a hand on her abdomen. "It's not just me they're after. It's this." Ryan's eyes widened as the realization dawned. "You're pregnant." Illyra nodded, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't plan for this, but now that it's happened, I can't let them take it. My child. It's more than just another royal heir. It's something unique, something the galaxy has never seen." Ryan shook his head, trying to process the revelation. "That doesn't explain why you're running. Your father can protect you." "Protect me?" Illyra laughed bitterly. "You think my father's court would accept this? They'd see my child as a threat to their power, a pawn to be controlled or destroyed." Ryan took a step back, his mind racing. He had expected danger, betrayal, even death, but not this. Illyra's secret was more than personal. It was a ticking time bomb. Before he could respond, a distant rumble shook the temple. The walls vibrated, dust cascading from the ceiling. "They found us," Illyra whispered, her face pale. Ryan snapped into action. "Who?" "Hunters," she replied, grabbing a small satchel from the platform. "They'd been tracking me since I left the Forbidden Zone. We need to move." Ryan followed her out of the temple, his pulse quickening. As they emerged into the clearing, the source of the rumble became clear. A massive ship hovered above the jungle canopy, its searchlights cutting through the trees. Smaller crafts descended rapidly, deploying squads of armored figures. "Stay close," Ryan ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. The two plunged back into the jungle, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. The hunters moved with precision, their advanced tech slicing through the thick foliage with ease. Illyra stumbled, but Ryan caught her arm, pulling her forward. "Keep going," he urged. As they reached the cavern where the Stellar Vanguard was hidden, Ryan felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived. A squad of hunters burst into the clearing, their weapons trained on the pair. "Hand over the girl," one of them barked, his voice cold and mechanical. Ryan stepped in front of Alira, his hands raised. "You'll have to go through me." The hunter smirked, his weapon charging. "Gladly." Before he could fire, a deafening roar shook the jungle. From the shadows, a massive beast lunged, its claws tearing through the hunters like paper. Ryan grabbed Alira's hand and sprinted toward the ship. "Whatever that thing is," he panted, "I owe it a drink." They barely made it aboard the Vanguard before the hunters regrouped. As the ship roared to life, Ryan pushed it to full throttle, blasting out of the atmosphere and into the safety of space. In the cockpit, Alira sat beside him, her expression a mix of relief and fear. "This won't stop them," she said quietly. Ryan glanced at her, his jaw set. "No, but it bought us time. And now that I know your secret, I'm not letting them take you, or your child." Alira's gaze softened, a glimmer of hope flickering in her eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this fight. The final battle. The silence of deep space was deceptive, masking the storm that was about to erupt. Ryan Colt stood on the bridge of the stellar Vanguard, staring at the vast alien cruiser that loomed before him. It was unlike any ship he'd ever seen. Its surface pulsated with a faint organic glow, as if it were alive. "This is their stronghold," Alira said quietly beside him, her voice laced with a mix of fear and resolve. "They've come for me. And they're not leaving with you," Ryan replied firmly, gripping the controls. The cruiser was the flagship of the hunters, a merciless faction intent on capturing Alira for the secret she carried. It had intercepted them just as they reached the neutral zone. And now, the Vanguard was completely outgunned. But Ryan wasn't one to give up, not with so much at stake. The first shot came without warning. A beam of energy surged from the cruiser, narrowly missing the Vanguard as Ryan pulled the ship into a sharp dive. Alarms blared across the cockpit, and the ship's AI delivered its grim analysis. "Enemy vessel has locked onto our trajectory. Probability of evasion, 12%. "Thanks for the optimism," Ryan muttered, slamming the thrusters forward. As the Vanguard zigzagged through the void, smaller hunter crafts emerged from the cruiser's bays, swarming like angry wasps. Ryan's hands moved instinctively, maneuvering the ship through a deadly ballet of plasma fire and debris. "Alira," he called over his shoulder, "get to the weapons console. We need to thin the herd." Alira hesitated, then nodded, rushing to the secondary station. She wasn't a soldier, but her royal training had given her enough knowledge to operate the ship's defenses. Her fingers danced across the controls, launching volleys of counterfire that lit up the darkness. Despite their efforts, the hunters were relentless. One of their crafts landed a direct hit, sending a shockwave through the Vanguard. Sparks flew from the console, and the lights flickered. "We can't keep this up," Alira said, panic creeping into her voice. Ryan gritted his teeth. "We don't have to, just need to buy time." "For what?" she asked, but Ryan didn't answer. Instead, he steered the Vanguard straight toward the cruiser. The hunters hesitated, clearly not expecting a small ship to charge their behemoth head-on. Ryan smirked, using their confusion to his advantage. The Vanguard's AI chimed in. "Warning. Collision course detected." "Not if I can help it," Ryan muttered, pulling the ship into a steep climb at the last moment. The sudden maneuver brought them directly above the cruiser, where its defenses were weakest. "This is it," Ryan said, his voice steady. "I'm taking us in." Alira's eyes widened. "You're what?" Before she could protest, Ryan activated the ship's boarding protocols. The Vanguard's grappling system latched onto the cruiser's hull, locking the two ships together. A hatch opened, revealing a narrow passage leading inside the enemy vessel. "Stay here if you want," Ryan said, grabbing his gear. "But I'm ending this." The interior of the cruiser was a maze of metallic corridors and eerie, pulsating walls. Ryan moved swiftly, his every sense on high alert. Alara followed close behind, her face pale but determined. "What's the plan?" she whispered. "Find their leader," Ryan replied. "Cut off the head, and the rest will fall." Their progress was halted by a squad of hunters blocking the way. Ryan didn't hesitate, using a combination of makeshift weapons and quick thinking to take them down. Alara watched in awe as he fought with the precision of someone who had faced impossible odds countless times. Finally, they reached the command center. The door slid open, revealing the hunter leader, a towering figure clad in dark, segmented armor. His voice was a deep, guttural growl. "You've brought her right to me," he said, his glowing green eyes narrowing. "How convenient." Ryan stepped forward, placing himself between Alara and the leader. "You want her? You'll have to go through me." The leader laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the chamber. A human, standing against the will of the galaxy. Brave, but foolish. "Yeah, I've been called worse," Ryan shot back. The battle that followed was brutal. The leader's strength was overwhelming, his blows shaking the ground with every strike. But Ryan fought with a determination fueled by more than just survival. He was fighting for Alara, for her child, and for a galaxy that deserved better than this tyranny. As the fight reached its climax, Alara made a bold move. She stepped forward, holding the crystalline sphere that carried the key to her secret. Its light flared, blinding the leader and halting his assault. "This ends now," Alara said, her voice firm. "You've hunted me long enough." The sphere's energy surged, releasing a wave that destabilized the cruiser's systems. Alarms blared, and the walls trembled as the ship began to collapse from within. Ryan grabbed Alira's hand. "Time to go." They raced back to the Vanguard, narrowly escaping as the cruiser erupted in a fiery explosion. The smaller hunter crafts scattered, their coordination shattered without their leader. Back on the Vanguard, Ryan slumped into his seat, exhaustion catching up to him. Alara sat beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. "You didn't have to do this," she said softly. "But you did." Ryan glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. "What can I say? I don't like bullies." As the Vanguard slipped into hyperspace, leaving the wreckage behind, Ryan knew the fight wasn't over. But for now, they had won, and he would see this mission through to the end. The unforgettable reward. The stellar Vanguard floated in the calm of deep space, far from the wreckage of the destroyed hunter cruiser. Ryan Colt stood on the bridge, staring at the endless expanse of stars. Despite the victory, a storm raged within him. He'd fought battles before, but none that carried the weight of this one. Behind him, Alara approached silently. Her presence was quieter now, softer, as though she too felt the gravity of the moment. She placed a hand on his shoulder, and Ryan turned to meet her gaze. "You've done more for me than I ever could have asked," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "For my child, for my future, for the galaxy." Ryan gave a small, weary smile. "Wasn't exactly on my to-do list, but I guess I don't like leaving things half-finished." Alara chuckled lightly, but her expression quickly turned serious. "There's something you need to know." The next moments passed in a blur as Alara activated the crystalline sphere she had carried throughout her journey. Its light flared, enveloping the bridge in a soft glow. A projection filled the room, a vision of a galaxy not torn apart by war and greed, but one united under a single, harmonious banner. "This is what I've been running for," Alara explained. "The child I carry isn't just mine. It's a bridge, a link between my people and humanity, one that could heal centuries of distrust and hostility." Ryan stared at the image, the weight of her words sinking in. He had spent his life fighting wars, navigating the chaos of galactic politics, and surviving in a galaxy that seemed destined for conflict. Now, for the first time, he saw a glimmer of hope. "But this won't happen on its own," Alara continued. "The hunters were just one enemy. There will be others who see my child as a threat, who will stop at nothing to destroy this vision." Ryan leaned against the console, his mind racing. So, what now? You keep running. Hiding. Alira shook her head. No. Running solves nothing. I need to go back, to my father, to my people. But I can't do it alone. As the vanguard entered the coordinates for the Ulari capital, Ryan felt a knot of unease in his stomach. The alien king's court was a dangerous place, full of power-hungry factions that would see Alira's return as an opportunity to seize control. Still, there was no turning back now. The Ulari welcomed them with cautious respect, their glowing city stretching across the horizon like a sea of light. As the ship docked, Ryan and Alira were met by an honor guard that escorted them to the throne room. King Verex rose from his throne the moment he saw his daughter, his stern expression softening with relief. "Alira," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You've returned." "And not alone," she replied, glancing at Ryan. "This human saved my life more times than I can count. He believed in me when no one else did." The king's gaze shifted to Ryan, his eyes filled with gratitude and curiosity. "Captain Colt, you've done what even my most loyal warriors could not. How can I ever repay you?" Ryan hesitated. He wasn't one for grand speeches or lofty rewards. He thought of the battles he had fought, the lives he had saved, and the losses he had endured. Finally, he spoke. "Give her a chance," he said simply. "Let her prove that this vision isn't just a dream." The court was divided. Some saw Alira's return as a sign of hope, while others whispered of treachery and danger. Ryan stood by her side through it all, his presence a constant reminder that humanity and the Ulari could work together. In the days that followed, Alira's secret was revealed to the galaxy. The child she carried, a blend of human and Ulari DNA, became a symbol of unity, sparking debates and alliances across the stars. For Ryan, it was a strange feeling to be part of something so monumental. He had always been a soldier, a man of action. But now he found himself at the center of a movement that could change the course of history. The day of departure came quickly. Ryan stood on the vanguard's ramp, watching as Alira prepared to take her place as a leader, not just of her people, but of something greater. She turned to him one last time, her expression filled with gratitude. "Ryan," she said softly, "I'll never forget what you've done for me, for us." He nodded, his usual smirk softening into something more genuine. "Take care of yourself, and don't let them push you around." She smiled, stepping closer. "And you, don't forget what you're fighting for." Before he could reply, she pressed something into his hand. "A small, glowing crystal, a piece of the sphere," she explained. "A reminder that you'll always be part of this." As Alira departed, Ryan stood at the edge of the ramp, watching her disappear into the bustling city. He felt a strange mix of pride and loss, knowing that his journey with her had ended but his role in the galaxy's future had just begun. Later, aboard the stellar vanguard, Ryan placed the crystal on the console. Its light reflected off the walls, casting a warm glow across the cabin. For the first time in years, Ryan allowed himself to hope. He gazed out at the stars, a faint smile on his lips. "Guess I've got a new mission." And with that, the vanguard roared to life, disappearing into the endless expanse of space.